But
You'll know that it gets ingrained in the culture forever.
yeah, and it's one of the first songs that I really learned as a kid. I
Yeah,
guess
yeah.
it brings people together. So fucking
It brings people together.
sucking at something is the first step to being kind of good at it.
Yeah, I guess that you're right. All right, how am I? There.
You look good. Straight on.
Mm-hmm.
We got 3 cameras on us. One for your phone, one for the camera in the corner.
Yeah, right. One for the big brother.
Uh-huh. Your art looks great in the background. Gerald Sistida. Here we go. Hello there. We have absolutely no idea what to say. Do you have any idea what to say?
No, but I thought a general introduction as to what we were doing here.
Pretty
How
good.
we even met.
Oh, that's an excellent place to start.
You just kind of walked in one day.
I literally did that.
Were you exploring? What were you doing at the library?
Okay, so I had come with a friend of mine.
Uh-huh.
We had a falling out afterwards, which is kind of tough. It was my decision, kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
And so I had come back because I had turned in an online application and I wanted to follow it up in person.
Okay.
And so I come into the library, dressed like I'm going to be like,
Interviewed.
yeah.
You looked like you were going to be interviewed that day.
I literally walked into the meeting that they were having for the job that I wanted. It just happened to be going on.
Wow.
And so I sat in on a quarterly meeting, and then I caught the lady as she was coming out and introduced myself to her, gave her my resume.
Yeah.
I nailed that part of it, but I didn't get the job in the end.
Oh, man.
But I was still exploring, and I came down to the 4th floor, and I came
Yeah.
here the first time. I just floated around a little bit and then left.
Yeah.
And then you asked me to come back, so I was like, screw it, I'll
Nice.
come back.
That's amazing how that worked out.
It-
You didn't get the job, but look at that. Here we are on the second part of this.
Exactly.
So, cool.
What about you? Why are you here?
Well, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my wife who put the application in.
Okay.
You know, she's always trying to promote my artwork, and I'm always just trying to make more artwork, and she's working hard to promote it. So she saw the open call for artists in the gallery,
Mm-hmm.
and she asked me if I wanted to do it, and I said, yeah, sure, but it's a gallery. I mean, it's a library art show. I never thought, but I never seen the space. And she
You
said
had
it's a
some
good
preconceived
space.
notions about it, though.
Yes,
That's
absolutely.
understandable.
And she said, "No, I showed there a long time ago, and it's a pretty good space." My art school friends didn't want anything to do with it when she did it,
Mm-hmm.
and I could, I was like, "Well, I don't blame her. It's a library show," but she pushed forward on it, and I'm glad she did because here we are, and it's a big space, a really great space.
Have an exceptional representation of your body of work, too. That's
Yeah,
kinda
I
good.
never get to see all my work like this. I mean, it's just like some early works and some works I did last week, and just seeing them all, seeing how I've progressed as a painter is pretty phenomenal. But then also the nostalgia of where I was when I made these paintings
Mhm.
and the memories. These are all like memories.
So, is that what you put into your paintings?
Yeah,
Is it the moment, the memory? Is it the emotion of the moment? What do you got?
mostly the moment, the moment where I'm at, and that's just a snapshot. You can never encompass all of the emotions tied into that specific moment. That's mostly for me. Sometimes I get lucky and my paintings evoke a certain emotion for the viewer.
Mm-hmm.
That's not always my intention. My intention is usually, especially with my plein air works, is to capture that moment in time.
You say plein air. What is that?
Plein air is French for open air. Open air.
So when you take an easel somewhere and
That's right. Set it
okay.
up and paint in public. Oftentimes, it's a nature scene, and this is a geeky argument that I enjoy having with plein air painting. Is that can plein air be in a bar?
okay.
You know, because you've taken it out of your studio,
Mhm.
and now you're painting in the open air for others to look at you and ridicule or whatever. You know,
It's a little raw.
yeah, it's the traditional plein air painter says no, it has to be a nature scene.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that does it have to be? What they'll say is no, it has to be outdoors for it to be plein air. And so I'll push that envelope by taking it outdoors, but painting something that's totally indoors.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So just to see what, is this still plein air painting or is it? Yeah.
Now I hear some rebellion in your voice.
Oh, all the time.
Do you do that for the rebelliousness of it, or is it more kind of making a statement about what plein air really is these days?
Well, I think I do it more for a little bit of both. the rebellion aspect of it, but more snarky attitude towards the people who say this is the way something is supposed to be.
Yeah.
The die hard, this plein air painting has to be plein air, and you got to be outside, and it's got to be an outdoor painting. So I'll push those envelopes because there's always some wiggle room. There's always, they'll say plein air painting has to be done outside.
Mm-hmm.
Your bar scenes are not plein air paintings. Okay, so I'll go outside and I'll make a painting of a bar scene, but I'm outside. Is that plein air?
So it's not even in the bar looking at the painting.
That's right.
Okay.
It's just okay, so you said I have to be outside painting in order for... No, that's not plein air either, because now you got to be painting what you got to be looking at. Well, that's what I was doing in the bar when you said it wasn't plein air. So that's just one example of my...
That's really corny and angsty.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
I think it's because I'm the youngest of 5 children.
Okay.
And so there was always that, I'm not touching you kind of thing.
I'm going to carve out my own space.
Right. That's right. So just kind of, I think it helps people become aware of who I am as an artist and as a painter by seeing that, okay, so I'm not trying to make a painting that looks exactly like the thing that we're looking at. I'm trying to make a painting that'll make you feel like
you're there? Feel like you've experienced it?
That's a good question. Like you've experienced it, I would say. Because experience, once it gets filed away in our memory bank, it's not sharp anymore.
Yeah.
And my paintings are not sharp. My paintings are not fine, realistic kind of paintings. They're just, the brushes are wide. Sometimes they're not even clean. And so you'll get a little mixture of the colors. The skies sometimes have a little bit of gray in them or brown tint or whatever was on the end of my brush whenever I decided I'm going to scrub in the sky. And that's what I think, whatever we were talking about there.
That's a good thing. I feel like you touched on an emotion right there.
Yeah.
I actually watched that happen. That was kind of righteous.
Yeah.
There's a sense that they kind of bleed into each other then.
They do.
From one painting to the next.
Absolutely. I used to say that all the time about one painting is a reaction to the one that happened before. The next painting is a reaction to...
I think that's kind of strange. It's something that, the first time we sat down and talked, with your wife Francine, she was still working over here. You talked about how each of these is an individual, just like a fragment sentence is what you called it.
Right.
But they bleed into each other, one to the next, all the way through.
Maybe they're more like run-on sentences. Right?
You're thinking about it. I don't have the answer to that one. I definitely don't have the answer to that one.
Well, I think it's a run-on sentence. Maybe. We'll see.
Do you mind if I touch on some stress right now?
Yeah, touch on some stress.
Okay. Because it's hard being an artist.
Yes.
And it's hard providing for a family as an artist.
That's right.
A lot of artists spend a long time being burned out.
Right.
On a lot of things.
Yeah.
And taking on the task of living a stable and substantial life for other people at the same time. That's a pretty big challenge.
Big chunk. Big chunk.
Yeah.
For sure.
Do you have any fears that you're kind of going into a last hurrah sort of thing with this show here, where you get to see all your pieces up? And
that's a good question, because I actually thought about calling it the last hurrah before I put it on, but then I felt like, well, that's kind of a curse to myself, because it isn't my last hurrah. It's just it's a chance to see where we're at, assessments.
Okay.
And that's how I choose to look at it. It's an assessment.
What are you assessing?
I'm assessing my abilities as a painter and my abilities as a provider. This is content, really, a content provider.
Mm-hmm.
Assessing the situation of where we're at right now in the crossroads of art, visual art, communication, technology, and social society, really. It's like trying to make it all come together, because we're at a crossroads of all those things right now. It's a strange place for humanity, because some folks might say we're losing the arts, and that they're going to be obsolete, and technology is the art. But I think that somehow all these things integrate for the next chapter in humanity.
And you've been exploring that with things like your Selfie Nation.
Trying to explore that, trying to get other people on board with that, because it's such a big bite to take that I can't take it myself. That there are other people who are more technologically savvy and even better painters that might be trying to communicate with other people. And I think that I'm just trying to bring us all together to recognize that we are the Selfie Nation. Everybody has their ideas and their dreams for themselves, and somehow that it's going to connect to this larger puzzle of our social fabric. And when we recognize that everybody's trying to jive in that direction, maybe we'll come together a little bit better.
Okay. I think there's 2 points in that you just said that connect in a big way.
Okay.
So I was thinking, as you talked about how it's kind of a struggle, are the arts still relevant? Is the way that you're presenting art, is that still relevant? Does it still matter?
Yeah.
And, I feel like that kind of ties into where you're at in your personal life as well. It's sort of a microcosm.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have this fantastic opportunity to be, I don't know, if you set 2 mirrors up, they just keep receding into the distance.
Right.
And you're one of those mirrors inside the mirror. You're part of that process right now.
Yeah.
Which probably some relatability as well. And you hit on another thing that I think was less direct, which was talking about how you're afraid of this idea that you have of this Selfie Nation and how that applies to the arts and how you can kind of bring what you're working with here into that new field. And there was a little bit of insecurity in that moment, and talking about how better artists and that it's too big for you to necessarily take a bite of,
Right.
and hoping to work with other people.
Yeah.
I think maybe that is as much a part of the bigger idea that you're struggling with, that a lot of people are struggling with, which is the sense of how does what I do matter in such a large space?
Right.
I think I trailed off. Do you think?
Well, I can see, like, what I'm doing is a drop in the bucket or a larger ocean.
Okay.
Right. Okay, so there is that, and then there is,
and certainly it's tempting to minimize it in that way so that it doesn't feel as huge as it actually is in your life.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Because ultimately, in the sea of people that exist, I'm just a drop as well. But I feel like I'm not that different from you or the next person who walks in, because we all are looking at things from that perspective that it begins small here at one point and goes out, right?
Yes.
And that is kind of, so when I chose the title of the show for Selfie Nation, it didn't necessarily incorporate all these works, but that kind of grew into the idea of the Selfie Nation. The Selfie Nation began as a series of sculptures and selfie opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
But the more I thought about it, and the more I began to think about my relationship and my art career and my artwork, the body of work that I had to present in context to the sculptures, and then in context to the way I hoped that people received them, it kind of all tied together and became that even this is part of my Selfie Nation. This is my part of it. And
so this is, in a sense, giving other people the opportunity to stop looking into the mirror and seeing how small your mirror is inside of it, but to look out from that and see how big the world looks from your perspective.
Dude, that's a good one. That's right. I'd never had the words for that, but that strikes a good sentiment right there.
Okay, that's a bold thing to do.
Right.
It requires you putting yourself out there in a very large way.
Yeah.
A very raw kind of way.
Right.
Which gets progressively more difficult to do the more stressed and the more you have on the line for it.
That's right.
And the harder the things that you have to present to people are.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can find that very relatable.
Right. Well, I think everybody can when you stop to think about it. When a person stops to think about, okay, who am I in this great big universe?
Yeah.
Then you can relate. And that's what I'm searching for, is the universal for us all. Because there's something there's an energy, a spirit that connects us all. And how do we find that? Have we ever been at a point in humanity where everybody was jiving? No. And there's always been that tension, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we know and we're aware that there is an idealistic place that we can reach where our spirits, our bodies align with our neighbors.
We all hold on to the idea that we can all work together and make it work.
Right.
Which is a beautiful thing.
It keeps us going. It's the idea of the city.
Mm.
Mm.
That's pretty good. You tied that one in. That was all you.
That was good.
So, okay. It's a difficult place to restart from.
But the city is I was just thinking about how in college we talk a lot about the city. I went to a very small college
Mm-hmm.
called the College of St. Thomas More. And
Okay.
it was in Fort Worth. And it was tiny. It was just a couple of houses, really. And it was some critical thinkers that built this college. And the idea of the city was talked about quite a bit. And the idea that people came into the city and that there was a Platonic idea that said that gods and beasts existed outside the city. Man existed in the city, and gods and beasts. And anybody that did not live in the city was either god or beast.
Okay.
And
this is something that you've been exploring quite a bit.
I've been exploring the idea of that.
There's a common motif in some of the works that you've been putting out very recently of this bull in Fort Worth.
Right. Yeah.
Do you mind just explaining kind of
The beast.
the situation in which you see this bull and what
Yeah.
you're doing while you see it? And
Right.
because there's got to be something in between why you think about this bull and why it matters to you while you're in that scenario.
Okay, so the bull is in a field just outside of the warehouse where I've been doing some work.
And is it like a statue?
No, it's a real bull.
It's a real bull.
It's a real longhorn.
Okay.
And I mean, he's all bull. I mean, he's this big fat monster, and he's got some females.
He's got his cojones right there for the world to see.
It's like giant.
Yeah.
And so there's 3 fields that this herd, the small herd, occupies. In the mornings when I come into the warehouse, it's on a field to the north or to the east, right? And they're grazing there when I come in.
Okay.
And then midday at lunchtime, they're in another field. They don't make it to my field until about 5 or 6 in the evening.
And so what have you been doing up until that point?
I'm working on some upholstery. I'm working on recarpeting some.
Okay, so it's like a physical building.
Yeah.
It's like a business.
It's a business. I'm
Okay.
working for somebody, and I finally get a break to make a painting, and I'm dedicated to making a painting every day. That is my thing, and I don't have the time. I don't want to go out and fight traffic to go to a spot, so I just kind of look for something that's around. And there's this bull that shows up in the evening, and I figured what a great thing to paint in Dallas and in Texas, but a big longhorn. I've never considered myself I used to make fun of painters that would make paintings of bluebonnets and longhorns.
Like sensationalist kind of
Yeah,
things.
just kind of. But here I am making a painting of this longhorn.
But and again, that's where understanding the story of the artist comes into play, to really understanding, what the purpose of that bull is, because it's not to you about Texas, it's about the beast.
It's about, well, it has become about the beast. It began with me just sticking to the regimen of making a painting every day. Okay, so that's where the exercise. You got to stay in it to be in it, and making that painting for me and broadcasting it or throwing it up on Instagram is the goal. Make a painting, put it up there, and that's why I've got so many painting pieces, because I'm trying to make a painting every day. Ideally, I'd like to do an art show that was like 365 paintings. Yep, the paintings I made every day.
A whole year.
A whole year.
That's intense.
It is, and it might not. Sometimes a painting doesn't come off the easel that easy. But I think that painting is muscle, memory, kind of like, so I could draw I feel like if I practice enough, I should be able to make a painting off of every canvas that comes on my easel.
So when you shape that, because sometimes you're just doing the painting for the painting,
Right.
because you're doing a painting every day.
Right.
So you get the practice, you get the motion, the understanding brush control, things like that.
Right.
But then as you go along, there's substantial points, right?
Well, that's where the subconscious comes in, because the colors I end up using now, it's not just a longhorn that I'm painting. When I'm sitting there at the easel and I'm working on this, my mind, I can't keep my mind. I start thinking about the beast. Now here's this longhorn, this big bull.
And aspects of your day come to mind as well.
Right, that's right. And it all just kind of, and that's where the art starts happening for me. And it's the way that I relate to this moment that I'm at now. Maybe there's clear skies, maybe there's some clouds in the sky, the sun might be setting, the different times of the day, the way the light reflects, and then reflecting on that, it's to the aspects of my day, aspects of my week, the aspects of my life, and then that all tying in together. Now I find myself, I can relate to the bull on a level that's not just worker looking across a field at.
So you're seeing the things that he sees, and you're taking into account the very same things that an animal would take into account in its life and its day, with the sky and the temperature, the colors of the grass around it, the wind, the way that it's moving.
Right. There's that, but then I also can place myself into the context of why here, why this painting? Because when I walk away from when I walk away with the canvas and I put it on the wall away from here, it's going to be a painting of a bull, right? In the manner of which I chose to depict it that day. And I've done 4 paintings of this bull. I've done 5 paintings of this bull. And the first one was kind of cartoony. The second one was a smaller piece, and it looks like a longhorn, impressionistic, with some color in its pattern. I started working more the pattern of his hide, but yet blocks of color in the field. And then the next one was very expressive, and it's got his bull balls like bigger than life on the canvas before you. And it's and first when I painted that one, he was eating, so his head was down low, but I looked at it and I was like, no, this bull looks defeated. And I figured that at that point I think I related myself onto that, I projected myself onto that bull.
Yeah.
Because it looked, now it's becoming more of an expression of myself as a painter, because now it's not just the bull. I'm already 5 paintings into this bull.
You saw something in that bull that you wanted.
Well,
and in terms of that bold willingness to just put yourself out there, and then something else emerged after that, which was this thought that, well, he looks like he's defeated in what I'm drawing.
Well, the only thing I disagree with in that is that the bull's not really putting himself out there. He's just being a bull. He doesn't even, it's not like he can reserve himself or put himself out there even more and be more bull-like. It's just what he's doing. So what happens, I think, for me it's happening on the canvas. I've made the painting of the bull. It was an exercise of drawing, okay? Draftsmanship.
Okay.
And then I make another painting of the bull, and I've got the draftsmanship down. Now it becomes an experiment with color and form. And so then the third painting, things are coming together, and by the time I'm in the 4th or the 5th painting of this same bull, now I'm taking chances with my brush stroke. I'm taking chances with the posture of the bull, and it becomes more like Monet's haystacks, right? After you've painted the same thing over and over again, by the time you're doing it the 5th or the 6th time, then it's not even the same thing it was at the very beginning, because now you are like the creator, making the haystacks from your muscle memory, your memory, or
you've done all the practicing you need, and now it's time to perform.
That's right. So that's where we're at with this painting of the bull. And I kind of think of Picasso's Minotaur series, and I think of Picasso's bullfighting series, and the way his evolution of the bull takes place from a very good drawing of a bull to this fantastic representation of a bull, and the progress of the 10, 20, 30, 50, however many drawings of bulls that he did between the beginning and where we finally get to where the bull is abstracted but still a bull.
So what's the last thing that you haven't put of yourself into this bull?
Let's see. I guess it would be in the scale of the painting. When I get a big canvas, when I have a big canvas before me and I can paint with my whole body motion and get in and large brushes and just
shrink down to these small spaces and then come out all the way to these huge ones.
Yes, and also the thing that I have not been able to do with this bull series is take off the yoke of being on somebody else's time while I'm there.
There's an irony in what you just said.
I know. I got that. But right now what I'm painting is making sure that boss man's work is done first, and not artistry. But then when when we clock out, the doors are closed and it's locked. I'm going to make this painting, but all I can bring with me is a small canvas right now. I can't set up a big giant, and the sun is fading. It's already late in the day, and so the scale of the work is the only thing that I have not unleashed on the bull.
I have an irony for you.
Tell me about it.
In the corporate world,
Okay.
in the stock exchange,
Yes, the bull market and the bear market.
you describe it as a bear market. That's when you're up and you're going down.
Right.
A bull market,
It's when he's down and going up.
exactly.
And so that goes back to this last depiction of the bull. When I painted him, his horns were down. He was eating. He was completely happy because he was having fresh clover,
Exactly.
and I mean it was good times for a bull. But in the way it came across in the painting, he looked defeated. And so I changed that, and I changed that at home after I had painted it, and I looked back at it, and I made the bull with his horns up.
Because ultimately, there's more to being a bull than just eating. There's more to life than just providing for yourself and eating.
Yeah.
There's things to look up and wonder about above you.
Like that would be true. Yeah. I wonder how much of that the bull wonders about, though.
Well, you're the one studying the bull, not me.
Wait till I need to talk to that bull, find out what's going
Get your
on.
little peyote going to spirit journey
Get
for
in
him.
there and see what the bull. I've been looking for shrooms growing up, but probably the wrong kind of steer.
Herd.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't
Wrong
want to
kind of
steer
herd.
yourself to a bad direction anyway.
Yeah.
Thanks for catching my puns.
Yeah. Cool.
So, Gerald, you're doing great.
Thank you. Have you ever watched Space Ghost?
I'd like 2 or 3 episodes while I was going to sleep as a kid on Adult Swim.
Yeah, the conversations there where there's those awkward pauses in
Uh-huh.
there. That reminds me of you and me right now.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
That-
Well, thanks for the compliment. Doing good. I feel like I'm doing
Absolutely.
great and that was what I was talking about earlier about assessing. This is an assessment
Mhm.
kind of show. Like, I could put it out there and I could sit back and I could feel, and
Have you-
sportsman-like about it. I don't know anybody who's doing this kind of stuff.
Have you done this before?
This large? Yes. I've done art shows before.
Okay.
I have done art shows, solo exhibits before.
Do you think there's a pattern in the ebb and flow that brings you to that point of a solo exhibit and then back down and then to it again?
So, yes, there is an ebb and flow to that. And that is generally, I guess you could say, necessity is the mother of invention.
Mm-hmm.
And we get to a point because stacks and stacks of paintings, and you just got to show it somewhere. And it's, forget about the fact that the so-and-so bourgeois gallery in downtown is not going to show your work. That's fine. We'll find a place to show it. Whether it's a garage, a cafe, or the library, we're going to find a place to show the work. And I was very fortunate that we found this place that was large enough to handle so much work.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that's the thing, that when somebody walks in and they take in the scope of the amount of paintings that there are and the scale of the works that are here, and then realize they're all coming from one hand,
There's another more practical edge to that as well, which maybe doesn't lead itself to a sense of pride, but is honestly maybe should, which is that it's also attainable. The space that you're in right now is something that you can support and attain. It's the right size for you to fill up. It's the right thing for you to be able to pay for, and it is the kind of space that's going to bring in the kind of people that maybe you're exactly trying to tap into, that aren't those ones that are pedigreed in the art world, that haven't been around and don't spend time looking at all the Monets and all the Thomas Kincaids, but
right.
roll in like I did out of an interview that ended up going great, but also didn't work out the way I wanted it to.
Right. Yes. Real people.
Yes.
the real folks.
I think maybe from the right perspective, there's something really to take pride in that.
Yeah, I think so too. I always consider myself like a blue collar artist,
Yeah,
and I think that's all right.
that bull is going to be gorgeous.
Wait till I get the big canvas out there.
I'm very excited to see it.
Yeah, it'll happen too. We'll get there.
It's been a definite pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for talking.
All right.